The sun beat down on the village, casting a warm glow over the thatched roofs and the dusty streets. Under the shade of a majestic tree, a group of children gathered around an old woman. Her face was lined with wrinkles, and her eyes sparkled with a deep wisdom. She settled into her story, her voice weaving a spell of enchantment. "I was once a young girl, just like you," she began. "I lived with my parents in this very village. My father was a kind man, always providing for us. He would wake up every morning before dawn, tending to our farm, making sure we had food on the table. My mother would cook and clean, taking care of our home. I was their only child, and they loved me with all their hearts." The old woman's eyes clouded over, memories flooding her mind. "But when I was 15 years old, my father fell ill. He had been working tirelessly on the farm, and his body gave out. My mother and I took care of him, nursing him back to health, but it was too late. He passed away, leaving us alone and heartbroken." The children listened intently, their eyes wide with sympathy. "My mother was devastated. She fell ill soon after and couldn't walk. I had to take care of her, find food for us to eat. Every morning, I would leave the house, searching for something to feed my mother. I would walk through the forest, gathering fruits and vegetables, hoping to find something to sustain us." The old woman's voice cracked with emotion. "My mother would always apologize to me, saying she was sorry she couldn't provide a better life for me. She would tell me how proud she was of me, how strong and brave I was. But I knew she was worried about our future, worried about how we would survive." The old woman paused, collecting her thoughts. "In our village, there was a rule that every girl had to get married by the age of 16. I knew I couldn't marry, not when my mother needed me. But I also knew I had to be careful, that the villagers would be watching me." The old woman's face darkened, memories of a traumatic event flooding her mind. "One day, while I was on my way to find work, I took a shortcut through the bush. Some men attacked me, tried to harm me. They were rough and cruel, their hands grasping at me like claws. But I fought back, kicked and scratched, and managed to escape." The children gasped, shocked by the old woman's story. I ran back home to my mother, told her everything. She was horrified, worried sick about me. She told me to stop trying to take care of us, to find a husband, to provide for me, but I refused. I wanted to take care of my mother, to make sure she was safe. The old woman smiled, a hint of mischief in her eyes. "So, I came up with a plan. I would dress like a boy, find work as a laborer. I cut my hair short, wore loose clothing, and practiced walking like a boy. I was determined to make it work, to provide for my mother and myself." The old woman chuckled, remembering her time as a young boy. "As I worked on the farm, I would often listen to the other men talk about the girls in the village. They would make lewd comments, laugh, and joke about them. I would wonder why men could be so cruel, why they couldn't see the beauty and worth in a woman. One day, one of the men made a particularly bad remark about the women in the village. Something inside me snapped, and I couldn't keep quiet anymore. 'That's not right,' I spoke up, trying to sound as deep and masculine as possible. 'The women in our village are kind and hardworking. They deserve our respect.' The men turned to me, surprised by my outburst. One of them, a burly man with a thick beard, teased me. 'Ah, Femi's got a fiancé. That's why he's defending the ladies,' he joked. The other men chuckled and joined in. 'No, Femi's just a mama's boy,' another man said. I tried to laugh it off, but inside I was upset. I knew I had to be careful, that I couldn't let my emotions get the better of me. 'I'm just saying we should treat our women with respect,' I said, trying to sound calm. The men teased me some more, but eventually they dropped it. I breathed a sigh of relief, glad that the conversation had moved on. As the days went by, I continued to work on the farm, trying my best to blend in with the other men. but it wasn't easy. I had to constantly remind myself to walk, talk, and act like a man. One day, as we were taking a break under the shade of a mango tree, one of the men pulled out a calabash of palm wine. "Hey, Femi, come join us," he said, offering me the calabash. I hesitated for a moment, knowing that palm wine was not exactly the best idea for someone trying to keep a secret, but I didn't want to arouse suspicion, so I took a sip. The palm wine was sweet and tangy, and it went down smoothly. I took another sip and another until I felt my head spinning. The men were laughing and joking, and I joined in, feeling more and more relaxed. But then suddenly I felt a surge of confidence, and I stood up, calabash in hand. "I'm telling you, I'm not just any man," I slurred, staggering slightly. "I'm a woman, and I'm proud of it." The men laughed, thinking it was a joke. "Femi, you're a crazy one of them said, clapping me on the back. But I kept going, my words tumbling out in a drunken rush. "I'm a woman, I'm a woman, I'm a woman." The men's laughter began to fade, replaced by looks of surprise and confusion. They exchanged uneasy glances, unsure of what to make of my claims. One of them, a tall, thin man with a serious face, stood up and approached me. "Femi, I think you've had enough to drink," he said, his voice firm but gentle. He handed me a cup of water and I drank it greedily, feeling a slight clearing of my head. But it wasn't until they gave me a special concoction made from herbs and roots that I began to regain my sanity. As the fog lifted from my mind, I realized with horror what I had done. I had revealed my secret, and the men were staring at me with a mixture of shock and suspicion. I knew I had to get out of there fast. I jumped up and ran, dashing through the forest as the men gave chase. "Femi's a woman," one of them shouted, their voices echoing through the trees. "We have to tell the chief." I ran as fast as I could, my heart pounding in my chest. The men chased me, but I outran them. I ran back to my mother, told her everything. We knew we had to leave the village, that we wouldn't be safe. We packed our belongings and slipped away, hoping to start anew. We were about crossing the stream to the other end of the village when we were spotted by some men who carried us to meet the king. The king requested for my real name, and I told him Adeife. He went on to reveal that what I did is an abomination in the village. My mom, who was on the floor next to me, told the king why I did what I did and begged for his forgiveness. The king took pity on us and pardoned us. It didn't end there. He gave us some money to start a farm of our own and some money to also take care of our needs. The old woman smiled, her face radiant with joy. That, my children, is the story of my youth. It was a difficult time, but it taught me valuable lessons about strength, courage, and resilience. Never give up, even when the road ahead seems uncertain. Keep pushing forward and always remember to take care of one another, the old woman said.